So if you've been around Calvary for a while, you'll know that part of my story is that I am divorced. In my first marriage, my husband and I, we would do what all young 20-year-old married couples do, and we would go out for drinks with friends from time to time. Often when we were out, we'd have to meet up, both of us coming from work. So we'd meet up at wherever we were meeting our friends for a little happy hour. And then I would eventually leave, and then I would go home so I could relieve our babysitter. And my husband then at the time, he would stay and say that he was coming back like 10, 15 minutes later. He said, I'll be there in just a little bit. The problem is that I would wait for hours. And he wouldn't call telling me if he was coming home for dinner, if he was staying later, nothing like that. Because this was before cell phones too. And sometimes my first husband, he would walk in at like 2 a.m. and there were times when he came in at 5 a.m. after hanging out with his friends all night. And what this action did is it broke a foundation of trust in our relationship. It bothered me to the point where I would blow up in anger. I would get really angry, and then I wouldn't trust us when we went back out again. I wouldn't want to go out with friends because I didn't know when he was going to be able to come home that night. And he would dismiss me like this wasn't a big deal. And then I'd get angry and he'd tell me that I was controlling and all of this conflict in our relationship. The truth is that we were both young and it was hard for me to trust that he would do the things that he said he would do. But those times of broken trust from hanging out with our friends, they bled into other parts of our relationship too. I couldn't trust him to communicate or to pick up our kids on time or to take out the trash when he said he would. And eventually all this broken trust, it broke our marriage. It ended because I could no longer trust him. And maybe I couldn't trust myself in that relationship too, if I'm really honest. Trust, it's this foundational thing for all of our relationships. Every single relationship that we have is built on the foundation of trust. It's the rock in which all our relationships are built. And when trust is broken, it's like the foundation of your home. It gets a little chip in it at first, then maybe another chip, and then maybe a crack, and then maybe it turns into a full fissure. And these little cracks, over time trust, it breaks down. It wears us away. And when families feel this shift in the foundation from under your relationships, the repercussions, they can last a long time. They can even go on to future generations if we don't pay attention to the trusting foundation. When my husband Ryan and I were first dating, he knew that I came in with some baggage, that I came in with some trust issues from my first marriage that had left my soul bruised and tender. And it was difficult for me to open myself back up to this new guy that I was dating. I wanted to protect and keep the foundation that I had built just all by myself. One night, Ryan and I, after leading youth group at church, we went with some other volunteers to just go get a beer at a local brewery and to have some time together. But then it came time for me to go home and relieve the babysitter because I still had 2 kids at home. And Ryan said, you know what, I'm going to finish my beer and then I'll catch up with you right here in just a second. And I thought to myself, okay. This is not my first husband. This is not my first husband. But when I got into the car, my body remembered all of that broken trust. I started shaking and my stomach was turning into knots. And immediately I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot do this again. And there were cell phones at this time. And I called Ryan from inside the bar, from the parking lot. And I told him what I was experiencing. And I said, hey, I know that this is not you, that this is old stuff that I am still working through. These are still cracks in my own foundation that I am working through. And then he said to me, Angie, it's just a beer. I'm leaving it right now and coming to you. I want you to know that you can trust me. It was just this tiny little act of love, this tiny act of understanding and of grace, and it built our foundation even stronger than ever. I was able to trust him with a little thing, with a little anxiety that I had, and then able to trust him with so much more. Proverbs 10:19 says, whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. Friends, what do we do in our lives when trust is broken? Here's the truth of it. We have to talk about it. We have to shine light on it. We have to work through it. And that's so hard. First John says it like this: well, if we confess our sins, God, who is faithful and just, will forgive our sins, purify us from all unrighteousness. When we confess, when we share, when we talk authentically and honestly, both to ourselves and to the others in our life, we can build up that foundation no matter how chipped it is. We can build up that foundation because God is in the restoration business. God can take what's broken in your relationships and what's broken in you, and God can repair it. So whether trust is broken by your parents or your partner, whether it's your teenager or you have broken trust in yourself, we restore trust by admitting that there is a problem and then talking about it, by shedding light on what is going on, by examining those cracks in our foundation. Sometimes we need a professional to help and guide us through that process. But here's the promise: God is in the restoration business. We just have to admit that there are cracks in the foundation before He can smooth them out. Have a great day.